This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Prime. In association with Micromax. Nothing like anything.
On CNB today, the latest entrant into the highly competitive subcompact sedan space, the Hyundai Accent. We've also got the Harley-Davidson Street 750 for you. And we head to Spain to drive the red-hot Jaguar F-Type Coupe. Hi folks, and welcome to a brand new episode of CNB. I'm Siddharth Vinayak Parthankar. This is the show where you get everything you need to know from the world of wheels. Now we've got plenty packed into the show today. First up is a product that we've been talking about for some months now. We showed you the global debut and talked about why it's so important for India. That is the Street 750 from Harley-Davidson. The bike's right here with us, and Bala had the opportunity for a much longer ride than the few minutes I have been able to spend with this bike. Let's go straight in to our first review.
India is among the 5 markets in the world to get the Street 750. And yes, for us the headline was its 4 lakh rupee price tag when it debuted at the Auto Expo. But does that price also mean a compromise on Harley-Davidson-ness? Let's find out. The Street family sports the company's first all-new platform in 14 years. It's being productionized with the Street 500 and 750 twins at Harley-Davidson's plants in the US for the Americas and India for export to Europe and other world markets. The bikes also feature the new family of liquid-cooled Revolution X powertrains. And the platform also boasts higher ground clearance and an urban bias on the suspension setup. The Street 750 looks a little less intimidating than other Harleys with a leaner, muscular design and a neat teardrop-shaped tank. But it still has presence, and the fairing around the circular headlight lends some HD character. The instrument cluster looks simple in the center with the speedometer, and the quality of the switches aren't exactly Harley standard, which was disappointing. The position of the rear view mirrors is a bit of a bother, as you have to struggle to get the full image of the rear when riding. Our ride on the Street 750 began on the open highway, where the 749cc V-twin engine lets you cruise at 3-digit speeds with ease. Just to prove to you that it is every bit a Harley. The throttle responses are quick with smooth acceleration, and all 6 gear shifts are easy and precise, letting you enjoy the ride. Even at really high speeds of over 120 km per hour, the engine doesn't make a fuss about being pushed and allows to open up the throttle further.
Although the Street 750 has been designed primarily with a lot of urban commuting characteristics, you do get familiar Harley kind of cruising riding dynamics, especially out on the highway. The throttle response is quick and responsive and lets you get to 3-digit marks quite easily. But the braking itself doesn't inspire too much, especially the rear brake doesn't bite too much. But otherwise, the engine really eases out at high speeds on the highway and lets you cruise quite smoothly.
What is really impressive is the way the bike maneuvers through city traffic despite its 222 kg heft. The added ground clearance helps too. The engine backs all this up with ample torque in the low and mid-range, letting you zip around without any hassles. The riding position on the Street 750 is low with well laid out handlebars, although the front foot pegs are a bit high and could leave you uncomfortable during long rides. More so for really tall riders. You will certainly notice that the Street 750's engine sound doesn't go potato like other Harleys, but sounds more like a soft rumble, which is quite distinct and yet kind of un-Harley-like. Having ridden it over 300 kilometers in half a day, both on the highway and through wild Delhi city traffic, we can confidently say the Street 750 is a motorcycle that rides very much like a Harley-Davidson, although the feel could have been a bit better. But the bike really took us by surprise with its fantastic engine performance and easy yet solid handling. And yes, Harley-Davidson says it's geared up to avoid long waiting periods.
So as Harleys go, it's a really maneuverable bike, and as you saw there, Bala got a chance to spend a fair amount of time with the bike, even in city traffic, so that's a little different than what we usually do. Bala is right here with me, so let me bring him into this. Hi Bala.
Hi.
The whole aspect of how this bike, and even Harley likes to say that it's, it's a very different, very urban-centric product compared to the rest of its range. How did that work out for you?
You got to give credit to Harley in terms of, that's such an area that they really didn't work so well at in terms of, the city condition. It was a heavy bike, it wasn't easily maneuverable, and even the engine itself wasn't too comfortable in city traffic. But with this bike, you really feel the torque being available, flat torque available even at the low and mid-range, so you really don't have to shift too much. Even in terms of the handlebars being positioned, fairly easy to to try traffics, tight corners, getting it in parking, no problems at all. It's an area really that Harley has worked on with this whole urban riding kind of focus that they've brought in with the Street 750. But that doesn't mean that it's kind of lost out on the cruising characteristics, because you push it on the highway, the engine is equally powerful. So, the ride and feel is there, but they could have done a lot more really with this bike.
But I know you still enjoyed the ride because I saw all your tweets. But I have to say, I've just spent a little bit of time riding this bike so far. And you take that badge away, you're not necessarily sure it's a Harley, right? That's perhaps what's at the heart of it. Let me bring somebody else into this right now. You've had the chance to see his debut on the show just a couple of weeks ago. That's Ashish Jha, who also joins us now. And Ashish, welcome to the CNB family and also to the program today.
Thank you.
That's the point, right? I mean, is it Harley enough? I know you haven't spent time with the bike yet, but do you think that's for the Harley purist, that's going to be too big a compromise?
Absolutely. I mean, in my view, this is not really the purest form of Harley-Davidson. I think it's just a little bit of a compromise that they've done. Just overall, the quality-wise and just the fittings and everything, they've gone with MRF tires. So, in a way, this is not really the purest form of Harley-Davidson for me, no.
And 5 years ago, we would never have dreamed Harley would do something like this. All right, now speaking of getting really pure and to the heart of it, you've had some fun in Aragon in Spain with the new F-Type Coupe. Now, we've of course spent lots of time with the convertible, so there's huge expectations with that coupe. Before we get into the story, one word about the car.
One word? A laugh ride. I mean, that's not one word, but that's exactly what that car is. It's got so much power, yet there is that intrinsic old school feel to it, and all you do is just keep sliding the car around and you just keep laughing. That's how good that car is.
That's how cars should be, and of course Ian Callum and team have done a great job with the way it looks as well. So it works. So of course we're going to now bring you that review. That car is pretty hot. Let's get straight to it. The F-Type convertible preceded the coupe, not always the order of things, and whether it's the topless version or this car, just look at it. It is quite sensational, isn't it? It's like Keira Knightley in Pirates of the Caribbean, a corset-wearing quintessential beauty that'll also be a lethal slayer when you want her to be. What a turn-on! The F-Type coupe comes with two engine layouts, a V6 and a thunder-making V8. The V6 has two iterations, 335 bhp and a generous 375 horses. But the car we're driving today is that murderous V8, 5 litres worth of engineering brilliance that makes 542 brake horsepower. The F-Type Coupe has adaptive dynamics control. In the R version, the spring rates have gone up by 4.3% at the front and 3.7% at the rear, and the dampers are constantly reprogrammed. The coupe also gets the second generation electronic differential. It's been recalibrated and goes from fully open to fully locking torque in nearly 200 milliseconds. The suspension setup is hard, and that kind of works. The mad character of this car and the way it sounds. Pops and crackles on shifts, and the way it looks. You want it to be a little bit naughty. It'd be just wrong if it weren't. The 8-speed ZF gearbox is pure delight, and the steering is magnificent. Throwing the car around bends is a real blast, especially because of the active dynamics and torque vectoring by the brakes that just tuck the car back in check by applying a slight bit of brake pressure on the inner wheels. Speaking of brakes, the optional carbon ceramics on the S and R trims are worth the extra dough.
The F-Type Coupe may not be as clinically perfect as, say, the Porsche 911 or the Audi R8, but that's exactly what the point is. That's what makes the coupe that much more special. This has spine that a few of these sports cars over the years have lost. You can have really insane amount of fun even at very, very rational speeds. If the Porsche 911 and the Audi R8 are special episodes of Two and a Half Men, really funny episodes of Two and a Half Men, this thing is slapstick comedy. It's that much better. The cabin of the F-Type Coupe, well, it's not really as dramatic as how the car looks from the outside. You still have a couple of really cool inserts like these, the gold colored starter button and the dynamic control that's also finished in gold. But otherwise, there's not really a lot of difference between the convertible and the coupe. And the overall quality, I think it's a little bit more, there's a little bit more scope out there. And the Germans are still doing a lot better job when it comes to the interiors.
But the business end in this cabin is spot on. The seat is just right, and all the controls are well in reach and intuitively placed. The F-Type Coupe is made completely of aluminium and weighs just shy of 1700 kilos. And well, we agree that the engines are powerful enough to take care of the weight, but still that's a bit heavy for a sports car made entirely of aluminium. Expect the car in India this year, and yes, prices can be expected in the 1.2 to 1.5 crore rupee range. React to both the stories you've seen. You know how to get in touch with us. It is time for a short break, our sector snapshot as we slip into it. Welcome back to CNB. Now, it was a pretty smart move from Hyundai to use the old Accent nameplate, of course, turn it around a little bit and make it Accent for its new subcompact sedan. Now, that car was fairly popular. Hyundai hopes this one will do even better than that, but it has some tough competition from the Maruti Suzuki Swift Desire and the Honda Amaze. So, is it good enough? We find out.
Now, taking on highly successful products like the Maruti Suzuki Desire and the Honda Amaze in a highly competitive segment might intimidate many car makers. But Hyundai is definitely not one of them, having launched the Accent at a very, very aggressive price. Now, this sub-4 meter sedan carries forward most of the characteristics of the popular Grand i10 on which it is based. There are a few more features on the inside, but interestingly, Hyundai claims the diesel engine now packs in a lot more punch, and that should be more fun.
It's proportionate and pretty neat. especially given the constraints we all know about when designing a good-looking sub-4-meter sedan. But somehow it doesn't look as stylish as the Honda Amaze. It does have a similar issue like the Amaze though, and that is that the face is way too much like the hatch sibling. The car's profile looks a bit more dynamic with the lines in the metal and side body moulding in black. The boot is no doubt stubby, that is where you've got to keep things tight after all, and there really isn't much for the wraparound taillights to wrap around. We drove both the engines available on the Accent, and the expectations were pretty high given how much the Grand i10 has impressed us to begin with.
Now the U2 CRDI engine on the Accent has been tweaked around to offer more power and torque, and this includes an electronically controlled wastegate turbocharger which makes it much more precise and really increases the overall torque by about 13% compared to what was available on the Grand i10. And you really get a sense of that out on the open roads where the power delivery is extremely linear and the acceleration is really smooth. Also, inside this well-insulated cabin, the engine noise is completely cut out. There's really no noise that creeps into this cabin. So it makes the overall driving experience really enjoyable.
But if you're looking for a car that is more nimble, opt for the 1.2-litre Kappa petrol engine. Power delivery is linear and the car gets to the 3-digit mark in no time.
It's peppy, responds really well, and you really don't have to worry about shifting too much as it really stays in higher gears even at low speeds, and pretty much perfect for city traffic. Even out on the highway it performs equally well as you floor the pedal, get that surge of power and really enjoy driving it on the open road.
The ride and handling characteristics are fairly similar to the Grand i10s, and given the compact size, the sedan-like difference doesn't show up. The base model for the Hyundai Accent Petrol has been priced aggressively at 4,66,000 rupees ex-showroom Delhi, well below that of the Honda Amaze, which starts at 5,04,000, and the Maruti Swift Dzire at 4,85,000 rupees. The diesel base variant too is priced below its rivals at 5.5 lakh rupees. The Amaze ID Tech starts at 6 lakhs and the Swift Dzire LDI at 5,78,000 rupees. The cabin of the Accent is feature-rich like its hatchback sibling, and in fact it comes with even more to really impress the buyers. So you've got a reverse camera on the mirror carried over from the Verna and automatic climate control too. The integrated music system has a cool 1 GB of internal memory. The quality of the plastics fairly impressive and the dual-tone beige-black interior works. So we have to say the cabin of the Accent is a bit more appealing than that of the Amaze or the Swift Dzire. Both the front and the rear AC vents seem to work really well to keep away the summer heat, as we found in already hot Hyderabad. Boot space is ahead of its rivals as well at 407 litres. So it's a formidable rival and it's priced well. With the segment expecting the Tata Zest and Ford Figo sedan over the next year, things will remain spicy for sure, and we reckon the customer will get even more value and features.
Now on to an exclusive interview with Arvind Saxena, the new man at the helm at GM in India. Now, he's probably got one of the toughest jobs in the country because GM has had a really tough run and he has to turn it all around, and there aren't any new products coming for quite some time. So how's he going to do it? We had a chance to speak with him about his strategy on just what he plans to do in the short and long term.
I think it's a very challenging, no doubt about it. I think, as you put it in a milder form, but I still see there's a lot of opportunities within this, and again, I would say it would be on both sides. One, internal opportunities which one has to really make business more sustainable. We really need to look at our cost and how we can improve on that, because that is where we'll get strength to fight back in the market. And from market side, I think there are many things which we could really do to make our business more attractive for our dealers and also for our customers. And I think that is what I'm looking at right now to make impact on both sides. I think over a period of next few months, that's where I would really be working on.
But how difficult is it for you to keep a balance between margins and volume then? Because you're also, I mean, the challenge is not simply to regain volume, but it's also in a space where you may not necessarily have the product that hits the sweet spot. I mean, you may be peripheral, but you know, subcompact SUV and things like that. And we've talked so much about that even in your previous role. So how difficult then does it become to maintain the balance between margin and volume?
Well, it depends.
Or do you sacrifice one for the other?
We have to look at it in totality, I would say. I mean, it could be a very difficult task, not a very easy thing naturally, but we need to find ways how we could create a balance, which could be through a model mix, which could be through other promotional activities that you undertake. But yes, we need to find a balance between the two. Because nobody can continue selling cars at loss or don't make money out of the business. If you don't, then, I mean, there are ways how we have to make a proper business case for anything, and it's a challenge, no doubt about it, today's time.
At the time at the Auto Expo when we met Stefan Jacobi, I asked him the same thing, and he was fairly candid in saying the Adra concept, which was on display and got actually really good feedback from most of the visitors. Subcompact SUV, sub 4 meter, we know you need it. Every car maker needs one right now. And he said not before 2017. So that's a long time for you to be able to sort of try all these different things that you've mentioned to just keep things going and to sustain. I know you're going to say that I can't talk about when the next product is going to come.
I need to ask Stefan Jacobi for this actually.
But I think you should.
In his mind.
Because 2017 is far away. I mean, I'm concerned when I hear something like that. So isn't that just a huge challenge?
It is a challenge. First thing I said, it is challenging.
Well, I mean, that's bigger than what most people have as a challenge.
But I think there's still opportunities within this, whatever we have. And I think I would definitely try and work on those.
All the very best. Thank you
you
for speaking to us as well.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time.
Thanks.
That's pretty much it on the program today, folks. But remember, Auto Prime right through the week on NDTV Prime brings you something from the world of wheels every weeknight at 8:30. So tune in for that. And until I see you next week, please wear your seatbelts, please wear helmets if you're on a bike, and don't use your cell phone on a bike or in a car if you're riding or driving. Bye-bye.
This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Prime. In association with Micromax. Nothing like anything.